Alright, my name's Ellison L OW. I'm studying child psychology this year in ISM. I'm 16 years old and I'm a junior at Frisco High School. And I work a lot with kids, which is how I realized that I wanted to do something with them when I'm older. My quote is, "The purpose of human life is to serve and to show compassion and the will to help others." And I've always thought that if I'm not helping somebody with my profession, or through my profession I'm not helping others, then there's no point in me being in that. Like, if I'm all in it for the money or for what it gets me, I'm doing it for the wrong reasons, and I shouldn't be doing it at all. For my research assessments, I studied schizophrenia and the links between schizophrenia and people with Capgras syndrome, which is where you think one of your family members or friends has been replaced by a look-alike alien, kind of. And they found some links between the two, and almost all the time people with Capgras syndrome have or are later diagnosed with schizophrenia. And I also studied multiple personalities disorder, which is, it gets really complicated because a person can have 2 or 3 personalities and not be aware of like, one personality can be aware of the other personality, and it can try to manipulate it and get what it wants out of the person. And normally the innocent and unknowing personality is the original person themselves. And I also studied the effects of trauma on kids, which really came in handy with my original work. I talked a lot about what they see and how they felt when they were younger can progress later on and turn into more harming disorders. And lastly, I talked about group therapy in prisons, and the prisoners are put in cages that are certain distances away from the therapist to make sure that they're safe and they can't harm the other prisoners. And the cages have shields on them and spit shields and spikes. It's just really high. It's like they're an animal and they're putting them in a cage. And they'll go through this group therapy, and later on they'll decide if they're stable enough to be released from prison after they were just treated like animals for years going through group therapy. So people are trying to find better ways for them to go through group therapy so they still get the benefits from it, but they don't get the harmful effects of being put in a cage. When I was going on my mentor visits or interviews, I learned a lot about a bunch of different types of therapy. The big one with kids right now is play therapy, which is where a child expresses through their actions and not through their speech. And my mentor put it as their toys are their words and playing is their communication. So they tell the story and they tell how they're feeling through how they play. Like, a therapist doesn't even have to ask them how they feel about it or ask them what happened, because they can see it in how they play. So there's many, that's kind of the umbrella that the rest of these types of therapy fall under. One of the other big ones is art therapy, which helps them express their emotions. And if a kid's really angry and wound up, and the therapist will see that, and they'll just give them some paint and a paper or something harder to use to write with, like a colored pencil, and you'll see them scribble really hard with it, and then slowly they'll kind of calm down and it won't be as harsh because it helps drain their stress. And through the pictures they draw, it also tells a story, like in play therapy. Another kind, which was kind of weird for me to hear about, was sand tray therapy, which is just a box of sand this big, and there's a ton of figurines. Most therapists have 100 or something different animals, people, objects, and they'll just let the kids play with them. And more often than not, the kid will tell, if they have had abuse, they'll act out a little kid being abused by a parent, or if they've had a death in the family, they'll put like parents under the sand, and then they'll get the gravestone and they'll have like a funeral service, and you can like see that it's really sad what's happened to them, but it tells the therapist a lot about like what's on their mind right then and how they're feeling about it. And then another kind, which was kind of cool, was animal therapy. My mentor has a therapy dog named Huey, who they go through all this training, and I was reading something about all the different animals they have across the world in animal therapy. They have like iguanas, llamas, rats, which was kind of gross, cats, horses, and there were some weird ones, but like llamas were really prevalent in South America. So, well, yeah. So you can kind of see like where each part of the world, like kind of what's going on there, and it makes them feel safer and more trusting, and it really does calm you down when you're sitting there like petting the dog. It helps take your mind on whatever else is, take your mind off of what's going on, so you just can talk more effectively. And if a child is very like angry and aggressive and violent, the dog will be put in a cage underneath, or in a kennel underneath her desk, so they see like, you can't be around Huey because you are a threat to Huey. You could hurt Huey with your fist. And she'll kind of talk through it like that. And they want to be able to play with the dog, so it helps them as like a goal to work towards it. And then these were my first interview was with Robbie Heath, who owns a private practice on Main Street. And she was a big advocate for sand tray therapy. She said she wanted to have a whole room just for sand tray therapy. And she has a dog come to her office twice a week, and she'll schedule her clients' appointments if she thinks it'll be really beneficial for them to come. She'll schedule it around when the dog is going to be there. And she also does kid yoga therapy, which was really weird, but she had a whole yoga studio set up and all the little kid yoga mats, and she has classes a couple times a week. My second interview was with Ellison L OW, who is still kind of in training to become a fully licensed counselor. You need to get 3,000 hours that are supervised by another therapist, and you talk to them, and you have about half the caseloads that they do, and you talk to them about what you said to the client in therapy, what they said to you, and kind of what you could do better next time. And she was also a big advocate for philiotherapy, which is working with the parent alongside the child and not solely focusing on just the child, but also talking to the parent every once in a while. Every third meeting, I think, she meets with the parent also. And then Erica Meek, who I picked to be my mentor. She's been a mentor 2 times before. One to somebody last year, and then a few years ago to somebody at Wakeland. And she has Huey, the therapy dog, who she got certified just a few years ago. And she works at a private practice, so she gets to choose her own schedule. She only works Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which makes planning mentor visits fun. But it's just, you can see how like relaxed it can kind of be if you choose to work in a private practice, because she's a mom too. So, and her child isn't in elementary school yet, so she gets to like be with him almost all of the week. And then Holly Lockett was my 4th interview, and she had a huge background in criminal justice. She thought she wanted to be a cop or a lawyer at first, but she had something really traumatic happen with her brother, that he was killed in an accident, and her niece had to go through therapy, and she just saw how bad he was at it, and he told her that she just needed to get over it. And like her dad died and she was 9, so she saw like a huge need there. So she uses her background in criminal justice to work a lot of cases like in high-profile divorces. And my 5th interview was with Edwina Townsend. She was a school counselor as well as a private practice counselor. So I decided to talk to her more on the school counseling side, because I had already spoke to 4 private practice counselors. And you can just see like how many more restrictions are placed on school counselors. They can only meet with a child up to 3 times before they have to send them out, and they have to be, all therapists have to be careful about what they say, but most of them have to, school counselors have to be especially careful. If they say one wrong thing, they could get themselves in trouble, the school in trouble, the district in trouble. It goes up and up. And then with my interviews overall, I learned a lot about working with the parents, how most of the time what's going on with the child is a direct result of the effect of the parent. But you can't tell them that they're part of the problem, or they'll get angry at you and they might sue you if they're crazy enough. So you have to be really careful about what you say to them, but you also need to try to get them to see that they need to work on it too. And I saw like the effectiveness of play therapy, how it really does tell you pretty much everything you need to know. You just have a little background on the situation before. And then all but I think 1 or 2 of the people that I interviewed went to grad school at UNT, and they all got the privilege to study under Dr. Landreth, who actually invented play therapy. So they get to study directly from the guy who invented it, which is a really great opportunity. And then my mentor is Erica Meek, and that's her dog Huey. And I've been meeting with them a couple of times, I think 7 so far. So we just kind of talk about what's going on, and eventually it leads somewhere. The other day she walked me through her playroom, which is where the therapist puts most of the time it's not an actual room, where they keep all of their toys, and she has probably close to 400 something toys jammed into a little corner in her room. But it was really cool to see like what each of them is used for, and how she told me that she makes sure that the child knows that they're not limited. Like a sword doesn't have to be a sword, it can be a baguette, or a shield can be a plate. It doesn't have to be what it's said to be. And for my original work, I'm doing research for care packages for children in grief therapy in Catacamas, Honduras. And I wanted to work with these kids because those are all kids that I met over the summer when I went on my mission trip. And I really wanted to use ISM as a platform to work with them again, or just this town, because most of these people belong to the children's home, which is where the kids are taken if their parents can't take care of them themselves. But all the kids that are in grief therapy have lost their dad, their primary care provider, because there's really no jobs for them over there, so he had to take a job as a paid assassin just to make ends meet, and he got killed on the job, and now these kids are left with all these questions and with pretty much no money for food because there's no jobs for women over there. So I wanted to do some work to help them. And I'm making care packages so they can learn how to express themselves, and over there I noticed that they really didn't have anything of their own. If they found a sticker, if we gave them a sticker while we were over there, they thought it was the coolest thing because nothing is theirs. They don't have money for toys or anything. So, but like with the supplies I want to give them, I want it to be able to help them, and for them to also give them a lot of stuff to be able to call their own. So I found drawstring bags for like 67 cents, I think. So that's, it was really, I looked everywhere, surfed the internet for hours trying to find the best deals that I could, so I could buy as much supplies as I could. And I'm trying to be able to buy 50 care packages, and then the leftover money will go to these families who have lost their primary care provider. I'm also doing colored pencils, a composition book, fabric for a blanket that my therapist came up with, which was really cool, they get to like write all their memories down with their parent, all the good times that they shared with them, so that when they're missing them, they can like literally wrap themselves in their parent and like what they have left to them and remember everything that they had with them. So for that I need Sharpies, and I need to translate the instructions into Spanish. One. And then if I have leftover money, like enough so that I can give some to the families, a substantial amount, you can buy like bubbles and stickers and fun pencils for the kids. Raising money, I'm going to be making flyers that we'll hand out at her office and my dad's office and all around my church. And I'll be asking friends and family in my ISM class, so get ready. And also advertising it on social media and emailing the people who I went to Honduras with before, because they'll definitely want to help these kids. And lastly, I looked over just some kind of background on Honduras so I could make sure that what I would be giving to them would be acceptable. And so their family roles, they fall under something called machismo, which is where like the dad is in charge of the house and he's the man, and the women must be subservient to him. And so that's kind of what's going on inside their house. The boys get a job as early as they can, and the girls help around the house, and they're expected to start doing chores when they're like 4. And then their government and economy is really, really bad. On our government's website, and it lists all the countries and if they're safe to travel or not. Honduras is at the very bottom, and it says do not go here at all costs, don't go, which kind of freaked my mom out when I told her I wanted to go here on a mission trip. But their government is just really poor, and they don't have the enforcements to be able to make it stronger, and the same with their economy. And I also researched a lot about grief, which helped me kind of see what these kids would need in the care packages. So overall, I'm really excited to get to work on my final product, which my original work has led me to. And thank you all for listening.